All right, welcome. Today we're kicking off a training that's all about one thing: how to get truly fluent in Mandarin Chinese. I'm going to lay out a really clear step-by-step blueprint for you, and it's all based on the immersion method. Honestly, this approach can completely change the game.
So let's just start with a question that I'm sure is on a lot of your minds. Why do so many people give up on Chinese? You hear it all the time, right? Well, the truth is, the problem isn't really that the language itself is impossible. It's that most people are just using the wrong method.
And this right here, this illustrates the two paths you can take perfectly. On one side, you've got studying Chinese, like it's an academic subject, memorizing rules, analyzing grammar. It feels like you're studying linguistics, not learning to talk. And the progress is just slow. But on the other side, you have acquiring Chinese, and this is totally different. It's about building a skill by just consuming content and letting your brain soak it up naturally. It actually turns the whole process into a journey you can enjoy. And well, that second path, that's what we're here to talk about.
Okay, so let's get into it. Here's our game plan for today. First, we'll break down why those traditional methods so often fail. Then, we're going to uncover the secret sauce, which is something called comprehensible input. After that, we'll talk about building your foundation, which is crucial. Then we'll get into the real meat of it, the 4-step immersion loop. And finally, we'll wrap up by talking about the right mindset for success, which is all about developing a learner's identity.
All right, first up, why the old way just doesn't cut it. And the main issue is actually pretty simple. Learning about Chinese isn't the same thing as learning Chinese.
You see, this is what I call the traditional trap. It treats learning Chinese like it's some kind of science experiment. The focus is all on analyzing grammar, right? And those endless, boring memorization drills. What's the result? Well, you might get really good at the linguistics of Chinese, but you'll still freeze up when you try to have a real conversation. I mean, we've all heard stories of university students who study for years and still can't speak fluently. This is exactly why. So, if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, it's a concept that's often called the open secret of language learning.
And this is absolutely key. The answer isn't about studying harder or cramming in more hours. It's about changing how you learn entirely. It's a total paradigm shift. And that big shift? It's all about this one term, comprehensible input. Let that sink in for a moment. Comprehensible input. So what is it? It's simply the act of understanding messages you hear or read in a new language. That's it. When your brain gets what it's consuming, it just starts to acquire the language naturally. You don't even have to try. This, right here, is the engine that drives fluency.
Now, here's the really good news. You might think, oh, I have to go live in China to do this. Not anymore. In the past, yeah, immersion meant moving. But today, with the internet, you have a massive, basically unlimited library of Chinese content right at your fingertips. You can absolutely do this effectively from anywhere in the world.
Okay, but hold on. Before you dive headfirst into watching Chinese TV shows and listening to podcasts, there's a really important first step, especially with a language like Chinese. We have to build a solid foundation first. So what's in your foundation toolkit? It's really two key things: learning the characters and building up a core vocabulary. Now, you might be asking, why start here? Well, it's simple. At the very beginning of your journey, reading is hands down the most comprehensible form of input you can get. It lets you go at your own pace and really decode what's going on. So what's the target? What are we aiming for? To get to a high level of literacy where you can read most things, you'll need to learn around 3,000 characters. Now, I know that number might sound like a lot, but just think of it as a concrete goal. Once you hit it, you've basically unlocked the entire written world of Chinese. And what about your vocabulary? A fantastic starting point is to nail down about 1,500 of the most common words. When you combine that with the characters, you'll have the power to start reading and actually understanding simple sentences. That's when things get really exciting. Okay, once that foundation is in place, you are ready to start the engine. And that engine is the 4-step immersion loop. This is your daily, repeatable process that's going to drive your language learning forward, day in and day out. So as you can see, the loop has 4 very clear steps. Step 1, find content. Step 2, consume it, what we call free flow. Step 3, mine it for new words. And step 4, listen passively. So let's break each of these down one by one.
All right, step one is all about finding content that's at your level. In other words, stuff that's comprehensible. So for beginners, think about things like graded readers, books written specifically for learners, or maybe children's cartoons with subtitles. Even podcasts that come with a full transcript are perfect. The whole key here is to find material where you can generally follow along and get the gist of what's happening.
Now, steps 2 and 3, they really work together. First, you just consume the content. So you watch the show or read the chapter just to understand it. No pressure. That's what we call free flow. But then you go back through that same piece of content, this time with a new mission: to mine for new sentences. You're looking for sentences that have words you don't know, and you're going to turn them into flashcards. And that brings us to the final step in the loop: passive listening. This is where you take the audio from the content you just worked with, the stuff you consumed and mined, and you create a playlist. Then you just listen to it in the background of your day, while you're driving to work or at the gym or doing chores. This is huge for reinforcing what you've learned and really tuning your ear to the sounds and rhythms of the language. Okay, so a common question is, how do you decide what to mine? What words do you actually save? Well, it kind of depends on your level. For beginners, a great little strategy is the rule of 5. If you see a word pop up 5 times, it's probably common enough that it's worth learning. Now, if you're more advanced, you can be a bit more brutal. You can save every single unknown word or phrase. But here's the cardinal rule, the most important thing of all. If you're not enjoying it, switch it up. Fun is absolutely mandatory for this to work long term.
All right, we've got the technical process down. We know the how. But now let's talk about what might be the most important piece of this whole puzzle: your mindset. This is what's going to make sure you actually stick with it for the long haul.
I absolutely love this quote from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. It says, "Focus on who you wish to become, not what you wish to achieve." And that just perfectly captures the mental shift you need to make. Stop focusing so much on the goal, like, I want to have a conversation. Instead, focus on your identity. I am a person who learns Chinese. So what does it mean to adopt a learner's identity? Well, a few things. First, you aren't just learning Chinese as a task. You are a Chinese learner. That's who you are. And every single time you sit down for an immersion session, you're basically casting a vote for that new identity. It also means you have to get comfortable with ambiguity. It's okay not to understand every single word. You have to be patient and commit to playing the long game. So what does that long game actually look like? Well, to get from 0 to a solid B2 level of fluency, and that's a level where you're really comfortable and can handle most situations, it takes roughly 1,000 hours of focus time. Now, I know that sounds like a big number, but when you break it down, it's not impossible at all. Just 1 hour a day will get you there in under 3 years. So there you have it. The blueprint is yours now. You got the strategy, you know the tools, and you understand the mindset. The only question left, and it's the one that's tied to your new identity, is this: who will you become?